you guys are doing well. So continuing on our journey, today we will be learning about CSS. I will try to complete everything, and then I will try to complete as much as possible things we can complete, and then we will when we'll do some front end design, then we'll learn the remaining part. So now first is basically image tag versus background image, right? So when should we use both? When should we is use image tag and when should we use background image? Now we should use an image tag when when the image is our content. That means it has to be present in the markup itself. For example, by content, what I'm trying to say is, so suppose this is my web page, right? And then you have a header over here. Now in this header, you might be having your company's logo, right? So this company logo is a part of the content, like it is not for some other purpose. So then in such cases or in such scenarios, it is preferred to use an image tag. Now we should use a background image when background image is used. When image is for adding decorations, right? So for example, you are adding decorations or some other feature to your page, and it is not the official content. At that time, you can use a background image. Now the next thing that we want to learn about is or the next thing that we want to understand is basically animations, right? So CSS has this feature of doing animations and transitions. At times we will get confused when to use what, right? So the difference between animation is transitions is transition will occur when there should be a trigger for the transition to occur. So there should be a trigger for the transition. That trigger could be anything, like for example when you move a mouse or when you hover on an element, it can be anything. The triggers can be okay triggers can be uh, triggers can be anything like hover, focus. A transition will work only once every trigger, so works only once on every trigger. The next thing that we have is animations, right? So animations do not need any trigger. So animations they do not. So animations don't need any trigger. And then they can be repeated over a infinite loop. They can be repeated over an infinite loop, and so you have more control over. You have something called as keyframes in animations. You have more control over keyframes. Now let us see what do you mean by keyframes. Okay. Now what is keyframes? Now keyframes is basically something that is so not supported. Okay, keyframes basically. Okay, let's see. What do you mean by keyframes? Let's see a little bit more about keyframes. Now, keyframes basically defines the stages of an animation, right? You can control what happens at specific. So basically, if you see a video, right? So for example, if you are seeing any video, you have frames in that, right? So at each moment you will you can be more specific over the control of each frame, right? So this is so basically we can control like at each every moment what's happening, right? This is the last one. So this is in a video. What you can do is you have frames, right? So this is basically our frames. So and using animations, you can control how this. So what we can do is using animations, we can control how these frames are working. So at every time slice, you're going to have at every time slice, you're going to have something or the other happening, right? So at every time slice, you're going to have something or the other which is occurring. So this is basically what is meant by a keyframe, right? Now, so and keyframes is basically like you can control specific amount of time, like specific uh, moment can be controlled. Like what should be happen uh, when we start or when we are into 50% into the animation, what should be happen? Keyframes is used to define the stages of an animation. We can control at what happens at specific points in during the animation. Basically, it's like a flip book, right? Each frame describes the state when you play it. So you can have this control you can have in keyframe, right? You can have this control in keyframes. Um, Now, so there are certain properties of animation, right? You can have animation name, animation duration, timing function, whether you are easing in or easing out, iteration count, and so on. Okay, so the way it's going to link this, okay, this is my animation, right? So the way you link your so you do animation. Let's see how this is a shorthand looks like. Okay, so the way the animation written in is um the way we do the way animation is written is in this format, right? So this is basically my animation name. Now this is going to indicate the time for which it should look, for which the animation should be present. Like this is 2 seconds, right? And then we should this is what is representing like what should happen when the animation is working. So ease in, we have to ease in and out, and then which we can this is basically mentioning how much time we should be repeated. Like we can do an infinite repeat over here. And then in later in your code, what you will be defining is this animation, right? So later in your code, we will be defining this keyframe and then have this animation. So this animation name and this is nothing but the same thing. Now we are going to define at each moment what is going to happen. This is not available in transition, right? So in transition, it's very you have very less control over what happens during specific part. For example, let's say, so in transition you don't have something called as, you only need a trigger to decide what is going to happen. So let's see some syntax. So then the way transition is written is you have a timing function. So you'll have a property, and then you'll be having a timing, right? So for how much function should be work, example 0.3, then how should be the delay? Should it ease in or ease out? And then this is okay. This is like the you can have either of a timing function or you can have a duration. Next is basically you are going to say on what property I'm going to apply this. So I'm going to say background. So this has to be my, for example, I have an hover on the button, right? Okay, so this is nothing but my CSS property. Wait, the property here is going to be my CSS thing. This so what I'm going to do is, so this property here is nothing but my, this is nothing but my property. So this property, okay, can I move it over here? This property is nothing but my background color, right? So this is my background color. So this is basically a CSS property. So what is going to happen is, now whenever I hover it, so whenever I hover, previously what used to happen, it used to get filled green in color all at once, right? But now when you apply this transition thing, so what will happen is there will be like it will be like a smooth movement. So instead of it running it like instead of having this thing in one go, it will be like smooth. So it will take time from here to generate it, and it will then go till here, and this will happen in how much time duration that we have mentioned. Okay. Then is about the responsive design, right? So whenever you want to have a responsive design, you kind of add media queries. The way they are written is basically, so the way media queries are written is, the job of the media queries is to make our web more responsive. That is, we use mobile first design. For example, what we are going to do is, okay, now we need, for example, we need the font size to change if the screen size is changing, right? So then what we need to do is we need to change this behavior. We need to change the font size. So then what we have done is we have set a minimum width. If this is condition is true, then the font size will be updated to 18 pixel. I mean, this is when the size is going to increase. This is basically minimum width, right? So minimum width means if this is the screen, then minimum it should be 600, max it can be anything. So if the minimum width of the screen is going to be 1024, only then I'll be applying. So basically this size is increasing, right? So 1024 is, as the size of the screen is increasing, I'm increasing the font size over here. So the way you write is basically you do @media, and then you do this, because a mobile screen at max can be only 600 pixels, right? This is my at max what you can get. And then here the for for desktops, the screens will be minimum 1024, and it can be anything, right? 45, 6, 47, however, how much ever you want to have. So we are checking this distance. So this is the, when we say width, we are measuring. When we say width, what the distance that we are measuring is here in this direction. Generally, if you go to a shop, they will give you screen measurements diagonally. How much is the longest diagonal? Or on one more example of a media query is when we want to, like for example, when we change the color scheme, right? For example, generally now websites have two things, right? Either it's a white screen, or either you have a white screen, or either you have a black screen, right? So then now what we are going to say is, if the preferred screen is going to be dark, then what should happen is the background color should be this. However, if you change this color scheme to something else, okay, this is okay. Where will be this defined? Is it like so? Is this preferred colored scheme dark a part of the browser, or there is something called as data theme? Now, where is this theme present? Is this preferred color scheme part of? But how am I going to update this preferred color scheme? This is my media query, right? Or we can update the CSS as well, right? preferred. So preferred color scheme is a built-in browser or a media. It detects the user system level preference. Now preference prefers. So this is basically system level. So basically, this is something which is happening at the system level. This is my system level. Now, preferred color scheme to detect the user's preference, right? And then what is also there are two ways you can control. Either you okay, either you take it from the system as well. So there are two ways you can have that dark and light feature. First is basically the color theme set on your computer, and then so basically first is color scheme from operating system, and then the other is basically um, setting it to a specific website. So then we use this is for that we use for having like a website specific thing, then we do data theme, and from operating system we do color preferences, right? For operating system we do color scheme or prefer color scheme. So this is a CSS attribute, or this is HTML. This is HTML attributes. You can change this attribute. Manual override switch. Okay. Okay. Width and height we said, right? How to control the width and height, that was done. Let's close this. Hmm. Okay. Yeah. So that's all for this lecture. I'll see you guys in the next one. Till that time, take care. Bye bye.